Hello and welcome back once again to the Coffin Heroes podcast, and we're back with another creator interview, or I should say creators interview. We have not one but two guests on today. This is a creative team who has facilitated the jump for one of the best-selling book series to the world of comics. First up is a name recognisable to listeners of the podcast, having been a solo guest before, and we do highly recommend checking out that interview on our podcast feed, as it was certainly one of the most entertaining ones. It's great to welcome back the one and only PJ Holden. Try not to laugh too much at that.
Hi.
Our second guest is making his debut on the show and is the creator of one of the most beloved young adult book series, with sales worldwide topping over 6 million copies and the title being translated into 39 languages. Yes, you can tell I looked up his Wikipedia page. That series has been going on in prose novel form since 2007, but it'll be making the jump to comics this year with the release of Bad Magic, a Skulduggery Pleasant Graphic Novel. He's also been dipping his toes into the world of Marvel in the last few years, writing characters ranging from Iron Man to Captain America to Winter Soldier. He is, of course, Mr. Derek Landy, and hello, gentlemen, and welcome.
Hello there.
Hello.
A day later than expected due to some technical issues on my side, but thankfully...
I don't know that. The listeners don't know that.
You know, I like to be, upfront with our listeners and very honest.
EJ.
Fair enough.
We start off how we mean to continue.
I like to appear humble, even if it's a facade. I like to appear humble.
I'm sorry, this is already veering you off topic here, but I once did a play when I was in my 20s, and I did a lot of student theatre. I once did a play, and the guy who was supposed to come, I went on, did my line, waited for the next guy to come on, and I'm in my character waiting for this guy. He took ages. He was having a fag. He was out the back doing something. He came on, stumbled on. He went, "Oh, sorry, nobody knows you're late." Only you know you're late. And the rest of us, nobody knows.
Honest to a fault. So, but yeah, no, I've just got a bunch of questions, just obviously to chat about Skulduggery Pleasant, upcoming projects, different bits and pieces as well. Your publisher, because you're people who has people, Derek, your publisher sent me an advanced copy of the graphic, which I sat and read in one sitting. Thoroughly entertaining.
Questions you're allowed to ask, and no other questions. If you ask another question, I'm going to beat you.
I'm going to try my best to veer off and subtly introduce an extra question. But the first thing that came to my mind, certainly reading it, was why the jump to comics with Skulduggery Pleasant. Has this been a long-term plan for you at all, Derek?
Yeah, Skulduggery would, it does by its very concept lend itself to comics. It's got that very distinctive main character. And I have wanted to, even before I was working with Marvel, I wanted to get into comics. A way in, I always thought, okay, what if I just do a Skulduggery comic? That would be a wonderful calling card. So it was always in my head. Whenever I had seen, and they usually take the form of a graphic novel adaptation of a book like Skulduggery Pleasant, and it would just be the first book in a graphic novel form. You have to cut out a load. It's not written by the original writer. The style is always somewhat formulaic. So I have seen where it's gone wrong. And as a lifelong lover of comics, I had a certain quality control bar that we had to actually pass. And so I wasn't interested in just going the easier, more trodden route of simply handing it over to a team to adapt it. When the opportunity came about, I told my publishers, okay, it's going to be an original story. It's going to be written by me, and I'm going to pretty much hold your hand as much as possible through this process, because for everyone, for all of the traditional publishers, the graphic novel format is completely new. It's completely alien. Even the terminology around how to read a comic page is new to them. They have to learn this. But ever since Heartstopper became huge, and it proved that the audience for story is there no matter what format it takes, once they realized, oh, we could actually have a thriving graphic novel section. I just Skulduggery fit right in.
Yeah, it's nice to hear that. I think that's definitely a good approach, because I find certainly with adaptations of books, it doesn't really bring new fans to it, and people who have read books before think, why would I want to read the same story again? I've seen it with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Vertigo did a adaptation a few years ago, and I think I've had copies of that book in the store ever since we opened. I don't think I've ever sold one. So I think the original aspect of it is definitely the way to go. I mean, how did you come together as a creative team? How did PJ factor into this part?
I posted on Twitter, oh, I'm about to run out of work.
The last desperate plea.
Which, my really good mate John McRae has often said to me, don't tell people that. You can feel that way, but don't post it on Twitter. That's just silly. And I'm kind of I've blogged for decades, and even when I was blogging in the early 2000s, I'd blog about my career and about stuff that was happening and not happening. And I'd get other artists going to me, God, I really love your blog. It's so honest, but also I would never post stuff like that ever. I would keep that to myself. So I posted very honestly and genuinely. If anyone knows anything that might be cropping up, I'm looking for work, because it's very hard to. I mean, I've worked with most publishers, I think, with a lot of the publishers, and it's difficult. When I've got gaps in my schedule, they don't know. None of them know. How do they know you've got a gap in your schedule? So it's only when a project comes to me, and that feels very. It's the opposite of proactive. It's reactive. That's the word. Reactive. It's reactive. I'm sitting there kind of going, well, I hope someone notices I'm not working at the moment. That's no way to live, really. So generally, I mean, with 2000 AD, I know them really well. So I'll usually say to them, look, I'm going to be free in about 6 months, or I'm going to be free now if you've got any work lined up. And they'll usually have something, because that's a machine that keeps churning. And with Marvel and DC and stuff, I have some editorial contacts, and I might email them, but I'm kind of a little drop in the ocean for those guys. So I do. I mean, my Twitter account, I had quite a lot of followers. I knew I had quite a lot of writers that follow me, and I knew if you let writers know that you're available and they've got the right project for you, that one of them might contact you. I mean, generally it doesn't happen like that. Generally, the way it happens is they might contact you, say, look, I'd love you to do a thing. Maybe we'll pitch it, and then it might happen or it might not happen or whatever. But I posted that, and then Derek, take it from there.
It was literally, I think, the day after I saw that tweet, and it was because, so we had been gearing up to it. It obviously took HarperCollins a while, because it is such an entity, to go, oh, okay, we're going to do this. Now, Derek, who do you know? And
what is a comic?
Yes, what is a comic? How does one comic?
How do comics?
Yeah, and I literally saw PJ's tweet the day before, and then we got the green light, and suddenly Harper and I think it was over the weekend for some reason, and Harper were suddenly kind of scrambling, because okay, this is now happening. Okay, we can we go for this artist? Can we go for this artist? And I go, everyone, calm down. I have engaged in a Twitter conversation with this guy maybe twice. Short, we've never actually met in person, and actually the 9th will be the first time we actually meet in Cheltenham. And
you have met my wife though, but that's.
Have I?
Yeah, you signed a book for her at a signing a few years ago. My son wanted to get a book signed by you, and he copped out because he was too shy, and so my wife got you to sign a book to him. So you signed a book at a thing. But anyway,
is your son code for you? You wanted it signed, and you went, "Oh no, I couldn't possibly."
No, it's my son. It's my son.
No, this is the creator of Monkey Arms. We are talking about.
Yes, that's the one. That's the fella.
his son has this self-published comic called Monkey Arms, and in Bad Magic we needed the teenage boy to just have something to be a fan about. Like he has the
Fictional
poster, he
band,
has
a fictional
the
band, I think it
t-shirt.
was in the script. A fictional band.
Yes, yeah.
So Monkey Arms now unofficial band in the Skulduggery Pleasant universe, which is kind of fun. But yeah, so you were sorry, before I rudely interrupted you. You were saying the sequence of events that led to us working together was you had got to.
Yeah, we had never actually met. I think we had exchanged tweets maybe twice, short little conversations, because I followed PJ once, just once. You go, okay, Judge Dredd, oh nice, okay, that's a follow.
My Judge Dredd is like catnip to a certain age of man, and I know that. I know it's not me they find attractive. I know it's the Judge Dredd.
But once we got beyond the Judge Dredd, I found him to be a wonderful human being.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and very charming otherwise.
Yeah. But yeah, so we just had those two small, short conversations, and then I saw, listen, if anyone has any work, I'm actually free for for whatever. I got, okay. The moment we got the green lights, I went, all right, you hush up now. I'm going to tweet to send a DM to this artist who might be available. And it just because if I hadn't seen that, I haven't a clue who we would have gone to, because the options that were being given to me were companies that had a roster of artists who could do in the style of, and those kinds of artists usually end up doing the straight adaptations of YA, and I think really the only exception was Kev Walker, who did a brilliant adaptation of something, can't remember what it was.
Silverfin?
Yes, Silverfin. I know but it's Kev Walker, so
yeah. I think there's an odd little demarcation between guys who do comics for the book trade and people who do comics, and that seems to fall down to some people. Their career kind of goes, I'm going to try and get into comics, and also I'm going to try and get into other venues, and they end up one or the other. They don't end up both. They end up one or the other. And so the ones that end up in the book trade kind of end up doing an awful lot of sort of book trade stuff, but don't kind of I don't know what the discipline's like in there. I don't know how they kind of manage it and stuff, but it's so weird that it's got this artificial demarcation. But I think as well it comes down to those industries are different. The book trade pays you differently than the comics industry. It was a whole, I can't go into exactly what happened, but it was essentially most book trade wants to pay you a big advance, a reasonable, an advance against royalties, which is great. And then you get good royalties. Poof, thank you. But that's not the way comics work. Comics work is you do this page, we'll pay you for this page. You do this page, we'll pay you for this page. And it was like when I looked at the way advances work is they give you half before you start and half at the end. And you're looking at it going, that seems like a brilliant deal. And then you kind of look at it and you go, oh no, about halfway through, I'm going to run out of money. Whoa, no, I can't be doing that. So we had to kind of talk around this and figure out how to make that work, because they weren't, I mean, with a writer, maybe that's different. A writer can work on that kind of advanced system, but a comic artist can't work on that kind of advanced system. It's kind of complex. So there was lots of little complicated bits and pieces. And then I think essentially the team that did the artwork, me, the colorist, the letterer, graphic designer, those guys were all my suggestions, I think, because I don't know if they had people or not. But it's funny, you want people you want people you can trust and you can trust. And I think as well, and I flatter myself in this, that with me, I'm a very safe pair of hands when you're doing a book like this. You know, for a publisher who doesn't know what they're getting into, and for a writer who's got a first adaptation or a first book in with a publisher, I'm a very safe pair of hands. You're not going to get any startling surprises. I'm not going to turn up one day drunk at the company discourse. You know, you're going to get the pages roughly when you expect them. You're going to get them of a certain level. You're not going to get any big kind of. So I mean, that's sometimes to my detriment, because people sometimes want to be surprised, and sometimes, you know, it's. But for the most part, I think that's suited the fact that it was the first.
Yeah. No, I think they and again, the thing about the Skulduggery team at HarperCollins is that they learn really fast, and obviously they're really good at their jobs, but also from the beginning they have been the ones to push new ideas and to be the first ones in the company to do this, to be the first ones, you know, to do that. We did
it's a big risk for them. It's a big risk.
It's a huge, yeah. And obviously they hadn't a clue what the hell they were doing.
Yeah.
And so, so getting it, like the first hurdle is to get them to understand and then appreciate the difference between an artist who does more work, as you say, in the book trade and a comic artist. And I said, okay, I don't want a more general kind. I want a comic artist. I want that sensibility, because apart from anything else, I know the speed, and I know the speed that a comic artist is used to, but also, and so that breaks down into, you know, the pressure of getting a certain amount of pages done in a month, but also just the attitude, just the energy behind the actual drawings, who they are appealing to, what areas of the brain they are hitting. I didn't want someone who might be a little bit safer. I wanted a comic artist. So yeah, that was the first hurdle to overcome, to make them appreciate the difference. So hopefully when they go on and do more graphic novels with other writers and other teams, they will be a little more appreciative of, you know.
There were some incidences that I remember thinking, like, I don't understand what they're talking about here, but where it was, I think they're so used to, because yeah, I remember, I don't know, I remember you saying that they were proofreading the script and they were proofreading the caption descriptions, and it's like, well, you don't need to proofread captions. It's only me saying that stuff. You might need to proofread the dialogue, but you don't need to proofread the caption descriptions.
Yeah.
No one's ever going to see it.
Yeah.
I remember as well, I think there was something about, they were kind of, I think because of the way books are delivered in a draft and then a refined draft and so on. So they were maybe thinking I would deliver like 120 pages in rough form and then 120 pages in finished form. And I like going, no, I'll get you. You'll be getting a couple of pages a week. You know, you'll see this coming in, and it'll be as it's done. You'll see it build. You'll start with nothing, and you'll see page by page by page by page fill up. And that's the way comics work. You know, comics fill up. And I mean, I've seen it before on projects where you start with a blank canvas, 52 pages, and you fill those pages one after the other. And, you know, but you can see them adding up. Whereas I think, as I say, they were kind of going, so when you send us the first 120 pages of pencils, we're going to, and I'm like, no, you'll be getting, I mean, well, every time I send you some pencils, check them. Don't sit on, check them, and then we'll go through. So it's just and it's to be expected from people who have never done the comic before. But which isn't to say that, like, everyone else involved, everyone making the comic was very familiar with the language of comics. You know, the Pi Powers done the graphic design stuff, and Rob, who did the letter and stuff. We all knew what we were doing, so we're just kind of helping them a bit as well, and so they understood the way it all worked. So I mean, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes down. I don't know if we'll see advanced numbers. I don't know how all of that works. I don't know. Derek will know better than me, I'm sure. But like, I'm like, oh, I don't know. I do know that I took one copy down to the Cork Comic Con. I could have sold it a dozen or so times just by people picking it up, going, "Oh, was there? It's not out yet. It's not out yet."
You just charged them £10 for a picture holding it.
Just for a picture.
That was that. I mean, jumping on that sort of art question. I mean, how intimidating, PJ, is it to adapt such a long-running and beloved series? I mean, so many people have ideas in their head as to what these characters look like and what this world looks like. You know,
you could call it an arrogance, I suppose. I'm not worried. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. And part of that is, like, by the time someone sees it to criticize it, I'll be so far removed from it, it won't matter. Like, there'd be nothing I can do about it anyway. There's like someone could say that's not what I expected them to look like, and I go, well, build me a time machine, I'll fix it for you. I can't do anything about that. But as long as Derek's happy, I'm happy. I hope the readers love it. I hope. I don't necessarily want them to, and I'm sure we'll get to this later, but they'll have an image in their head, and it will always be different from whatever it is I'm delivering. And that's okay, and it's fine. I don't even necessarily want mine to be the final version of what people think these characters look like. It's not going to be like that. Mm-hmm. And there was some stuff, I think, in the early days, in the first few pages, where I was there. It wasn't, because essentially the character's a skull, so that's easy. That's an easy thing. The more tricky stuff is the stuff that I think works really well written down, but is trickier to adapt, which was that Skulduggery has this ability to change what he looks like every single time you see him. So anytime you see him, he looks physically different, unless he's in that kind of skull form. He has a little doohickey that he presses on his neck, and he gets a new face, and so on. And that's a lot harder to do in comics, because now suddenly you're like, oh, that's what he looks like, and oh no, he looks different. And it's a different, like, where in a book you can write, and Skulduggery walked down the road looking like a different person, easy peasy. But now I've got to draw him looking like a different person, and for the reader to still know it's Skulduggery. So one of the things I was playing with was keeping the face in deep shadow all the time, and I think it really worked. But then we kind of realized, no, we've got to see that he changes his face, otherwise there's no point. So we were sort of stumbling around some of the visual language of it as well, which was interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think as well. I mean, I'll be honest, I hadn't read the books. My son and my wife had, but I do know the characters age, and I know they start young and they get older and older. So they change, their looks change. So this is one moment in time from those characters. This is not the final. They will change their looks. They will change how they are expressed. No doubt by me and other artists, So yeah. I mean, I'm all for younger readers picking it up and drawing their own versions of these characters. That's I can't be proprietary and go, if that's the right word, and go, this is my vision of these characters. They're Derek's characters. So it's ridiculous for me to do that. But also, I can't do that coming from the background of drawing Judge Dredd and knowing how many versions of Judge Dredd there are, and how many versions of him I love, and going, well, the Steve Dillon version is great, but then so is the Brendan McCarthy version, and yet there's also the Brian Bolland version, but maybe Mike McMahon version is. It's like they're all uniquely different, and that's kind of, I'm sure that's the way you want a character to be, that the character still comes across no matter who's drawn it, that there's still a strength in the kind of the central conceit of that character, that any artist, any interpretation is valid, but it's also just an interpretation. That sounds like a really glossy answer.
That sounded well thought out.
Yeah, I had it all written down.
I mean, expanding on that, I mean, Derek, did you give detailed notes on art and designs, or did you just stay out of the lane and let PJ deal with that himself?
Mostly stayed away. There are touchstones, like, as to continue on the Dredd idea. All of those, I mean, you can have skinny Dredd and you can have overly muscular Dredd, and as long as he has the chin and the uniform, it's still Dredd. And so because he shifts so much through interpretations, the reader quickly comes to understand this is somebody's interpretation. This is an artistic interpretation of the word that is written in the script, and it's filtered through what the artist wants to convey and how the artist sees the character. And so the thing with Skulduggery and Valkyrie, they're both tall. He's a skeleton. He wears a suit. He has a hat. She has dark hair. She's strong, and pretty much that's it. So
the little buckle thing with the skull, she has that too. That's also
yes,
signifying.
Yeah. And she has, especially in this book, she has a protective suit that flows over her clothes when she needs it. So she has a costume too. As long as we hit those
sort of touchstones,
those little touchstones for each of them, it's I surprised myself by being very comfortable with the idea that this is PJ's interpretation, because I'm such a quality control person when it comes to Skulduggery. Whenever we send out a newsletter, whenever HarperCollins sends out a newsletter, I have to check the tone of it. If I'm not writing it myself, I'm checking the tone, and so even the tone of our press releases, even because the voice has to be consistent, the voice has to be the same, and it's a very tricky voice to get right. It's sarcastic, it's arrogant, but it's also kind of friendly, so that's just in our newsletter. So I'm very hands-on about how Skulduggery and its universe is presented. So yeah, I was kind of surprised but I think when you do comics, and I started off in film, and then I went to books, and then I went to books and comics. And when you start off in film, you write the script in isolation, and if you're lucky enough to get it produced, you become part of a huge team, and you suddenly it's a collaboration. And then you go to books where I'm in charge and I'm the final say in everything. My editors will come back with suggestions and changes, and if I agree with them and if they make the book better, I will take them on board and claim them as my own ideas. And if I don't, I will, absolutely strike them down. So to go from whatever it was, 16, 17 years, no, 15 years of Skulduggery books and being the absolute emperor of my world and being the final say in everything, because of my work with Marvel, and you go, okay, so the writer is important to a degree, and then it becomes a team effort. And it's not a team effort where, it's 60-40, it's literally 50-50 in how to tell his story. So it was because of that when it came time to make Bad Magic, I surprised myself with how easygoing I was.
Yeah, I think the thing is that for the readers, there will be as many versions of what those characters look like as there are numbers of readers. So there will be no singular interpretation that will be right. Yeah. None. So the trick will be to make sure the voice is right, because that's what they'll recognize. And Derek's writing it, so of course the voice is going to be right. If I was doing it with another writer and Derek was kind of going, you guys do your thing, I suspect I'd be much more panicked about whether it would be received well or not. But I know it. I mean, I know the readers are going to hear Derek's voice through that. I know they're going to hear the right Skulduggery Pleasant. They're going to hear the right Valkyrie. And regardless of how many people would see the version that I do as the the only version. And there's a possibility some readers will go, this is the way I want these characters to look all the time. There'd be hundreds and hundreds of readers that will you would never be able to do that for, because they've got it in their own head what these characters look like. So it's just a matter of making sure you're true to the voice of the character, and that there's enough room for interpretation. There are some artists, I'm not a photoreal artist, so my artwork is not like, oh, I could take a photo and that would be literally what this is. There's a certain amount of, for want of a better word, slightly cartoonier artwork, which is more open for interpretation, where a reader can see it and kind of project their own ideas onto it. And so it wouldn't surprise me if there are readers that kind of see their version of those characters in my artwork, because there's enough room for that to happen, because it's not photoreal. If it were photoreal, yes, they'd go, no, this is, that doesn't look to me what I thought these characters look like. But because they're not photoreal, because there is a little bit more kind of elasticity for the imagination, that means hopefully the readers will come away. But so at no point was I ever worried about it, and I was just happy to have work.
The ultimate not worry tool right there. I mean, with regards to Bad Magic, Derek, how hard is it to strike a balance between rewarding long-term readers but attracting first-time readers? You know what I mean? Obviously, it's such a rich and detailed world. I mean, how do you distill all that down to, as I say, letting new readers come into it, but also satisfying those long-term ones?
That was the trick. Originally, the story for what became Bad Magic was completely different, and it harkens back to one of the earlier books with particular characters, and that is a good story. It's a good plot. I'm going to use it in something, but the more I thought about it, the less I wanted it to intertwine with the books, because the trick is to get new readers. The existing Skulduggery fans will read this book if they like comics and if they like graphic novels, and if they're willing to give it a go. So we will have a certain amount of readers, but the really appealing thing for HarperCollins was the idea that the graphic novel would be a way to draw in new readers, because there's something quite counterintuitive about long-running series, because you think, okay, you write a series of books which right now are 15 books long, and we've just announced that the next one will be out in March. So this is going to be, at the end of this phase, 18 books in this series. And you think, oh, okay, so there's this guy and he's been writing 18 books because it's a cash cow and it's a guaranteed sales. And to a degree, that is accurate. But it's when you have a long running series, your readership is actually going to start to go down, because it's all about getting new readers. And the lovely thing about Skulduggery is that even now when I do signings, yes, I'm signing for, the girl in her mid-20s or the guy in his mid-30s or the people who started these books as adults and are still reading them now. But I'm also going to be every signing, I'm going to be presented with a whole generation of new, 9-year-olds who will happily stand in a queue with a 40-year-old tattooed biker, which happened in Drogheda a few years ago. This tiny little girl was, in front of this huge, big, hairy man. And so, the Skulduggery audience is wildly diverse. But so the readers are going to, hello cat, are going to respond to the graphic novel. But as I said, the appeal to HarperCollins was the idea that, okay, the graphic novel can maybe entice more people into a very long running series. And so once I clicked into that mindset, I said, okay, I don't want it to harken back to storylines or characters or events that have been already established. I want it to be standalone. So that will appeal to both the Skulduggery readers and hopefully new readers. And it's whether or not we're successful, I haven't a clue. The thing with writing is that when you're writing the thing, you think it's brilliant. When you've just finished it, you think this is wonderful. When you close down the program and you go out and yeah, look at me. And then you go back the following day and you go, But thankfully, that didn't happen with Bad Magic because I could close down the program and send off the scripts, and then we got PJ's art back and go, okay, so, that level of a creator's excitement, was maintained the entire way. So I think we stand a very good chance of accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. But yeah, the important thing was that, this isn't just for the diehard Skulduggery readers. This is as much as possible trying to get as many new people introduced to the world as possible.
And was the plan always, I suppose with HarperCollins not having the same level of experience as, say, an Image or a Boom or a Dark Horse? I mean, I did read the book, and obviously it's divided into chapters. Was there ever an inkling of doing it as a traditional single issue series, or was it always original graphic novel?
I don't think that would even have been possible for them,
mm-hmm.
That isn't how they think. That isn't.
There's a massive amount of infrastructure required for monthly comics, as you know, and they're just not involved in that at all. So it would, I mean, the what do you call it? The wall they have to climb to do that would be so high. And don't forget, I mean, they're coming to not knowing anything about comics anyway. So I think it's, the idea of doing a graphic novel at all came from Derek rather than them. So I don't think it was ever. I suspect it was written in 20-page chunks because maybe you were used to writing that kind of size.
Yeah.
It was, because I know it went from 20-page chapters to 21-page chapters when somebody did the pagination and went, oh, actually, we need it to end on an even number.
Yeah.
So can we give an extra page in every chapter? Oh, that was a rough day, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I panicked. I panicked. I looked at the script. I went, oh crap! Hold on. Okay, so page turn. Oh no! I can't end on this side of the page. I have to end on that side of the page. So that entailed some panicked emails to HarperCollins. I go, okay, we are going to need either an extra chapter, so an extra 20 pages, or can we take those 20 pages and actually intersplice them, with
it gives some moments a little more kind of pizzazz. It gives some moments a kind of half-page splash or whatever, which I think is useful.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, the thing with books is they don't do pagination until the book's finished. Whereas comics are they're all about pagination. Yeah. They're all about
all structure.
Yeah. So you're writing the comic with the page turns from the get-go in mind, whereas I think they're coming at it from the other end thinking, well, once we know how many pictures are in this, we'll know how many pages it takes. It's like, going, no. maybe they aren't thinking like that, but that's just in my head. That's how they're thinking.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just some of those language difficulties with with a publisher versus, a book publisher versus a comics publisher. I
Yeah.
hope they find the experience good. I mean, I'm
I
hoping they all
I
enjoyed it. I don't know. I don't know.
I think they did. I think they have been, all of their enthusiasm for the project, I think, has been rewarded, because obviously after Heartstopper, it proved that there was proved something that comic fans have known forever. There is an audience. And but again, this is an experiment. I think it's this department in HarperCollins, it's their first time they've ever actually done this. And because of this, because their ambitions are now growing, once they see, okay, we're happy with Bad Magic, that was a successful experiment, now we want to do things like this with other writers and other projects and other books. But then I got a call from my editor saying, now, would you know any like freelance writer who would be able to take something like this and actually turn it into a comic? Because and as they explain it, it's like, okay, me as the writer I am, and with the influences I've had, and with the experience and the background I have, I'm in the perfect position to do this. I'm the perfect person to be their experiment, because I know how to write comics and I know how to write books, and my book series translates automatically. It's a no-brainer into the comic format. But other writers who might have the right idea, the right character, the right world in book form, they do not have the same experience, or even, as we said, the same terminology. They don't even know the terms of what we're talking about here. So I'm really glad that HarperCollins are happy with Bad Magic, and I'm really happy that their enthusiasm has been rewarded. But I think they realized quite quickly that this isn't just an automatic shift for every one of our authors. That's not possible. But I think because they've been so happy, they've been so pleased with the process, because it was I mean, really the added page to each chapter was the only kind of hiccup that we had. And as it turned out to be wonderful, because I got to go back to the chapters that PJ had already drawn and go, okay, where can we put in a new page? And obviously the place to do it is an action scene, and we have a few of those. So I had my pick of them, and as long as one page ended on a move and another page began, then that gave us a page to just put in a cool visual, just something extra.
I will say as well, if I'd been contacted by a book publisher who had no experience of doing comics, and they had a book author with no experience of doing comics and wanted to adapt a book of theirs, I almost certainly might have said no. because I've seen scripts by writers who don't do comics, and they can be difficult, because Derek's scripts were great. You could draw them; they were very drawable. And I've been very lucky in my career. I've worked with really good writers, but I've also seen scripts where sometimes it's not that they're not drawable; it's that the amount of drawing required to get across the idea, like opening a door walking through the door and picking something up in one panel, that kind of thing, where you go, yes, you could do that in a book, but almost impossible. Or visuals like the Invisible Man stood there thinking, and you're going, how do I do that? So it was, I think, it was a good team. For HarperCollins, probably the best setup that they could have had. And I would say as well, a lot of praise for Pi Power, who's doing a book now with Rob Williams. Pi's he's a brilliant artist, but an exceptional graphic designer, and is used to working in the book trade as well. So he acted as kind of a huge amount of sort of what's the word I'm looking for, in between the books and the actual doing it. The book publishers and the graphic design and getting the book into a state where it can be printed. I think a lot of that was on him, I suspect.
Oh wow, okay.
And so he might have been in some ways a key. And the truth will, the truth of that pudding will come out whenever another one happens, and we see how easy it goes, how smooth it is. But it's very, very easy for me. I just had to draw some scripts. Pi, I think, had to do a lot of kind of getting InDesign files ready for a publisher and all this stuff, which is complicated technical stuff that Pi is used to working for book publishers and also as a comic artist, and he's an amazing graphic designer as well. Really great graphic designer. So I think he was key for me to be able to kind of go, yes, this should be okay.
That's cool.
I do love the idea that the book has this hidden layer to it now, that every chapter you'll be looking at it for. What was the extra page that got? So I think you need to run a competition there if someone can say the 5 extra pages or however many there were.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm glad that the extra pages. I suspect maybe, I don't know. I mean, I'll speak for you, Derek. Here, this is probably wrong, but as a 2000 AD reader and probably a long-standing British comic reader, call you British comic reader because you probably read more British comics than American comics. You're packing as much in as you can, and so like the pages are 5, 6, 7 panel pages. They're denser than American comics, I think, possibly because of the book, and possibly because of that. But to be given an extra page and said, here, you've got one page you can do something visually nice with. Suddenly, that those pages tend to be the ones where, right, a costume is revealed or an explosion or whatever it is. And those are still nice to have. I mean, I want pace. I want pace. But that's because I come from 2000 AD where 5 pages is all you get. So pace is all you can really do. But sometimes it's nice to take a breather and go, whoa, that's a cool moment. I think that's one of the things we sort of got in because we had those extra. We hit the stop and go, oh, sugar, we need extra.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I like to think a lot of the groundwork then has been laid with HarperCollins. If there was to be a second book, a third book, is that something you're thinking about, or is it obviously you've announced a new trilogy of prose novels? But are there ideas percolating?
There's only
one man, and a talking cat. Now, let's be truthful here. But yeah, are there ideas percolating for any sort of further installments?
Yeah. And the I mean, I suppose it does all depends on how Bad Magic does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know if it does what HarperCollins, even if it does the bare minimum of what they want, then they want more Skulduggery graphic novels. And that's a lovely, I mean, beyond lovely idea. But it is a case of we can't screw up. But it's their, I think it's their enthusiasm. Which is the main driving force here. As long as as Bad Magic sells what it needs to sell, then this could be the start of a Skulduggery graphic novel universe all of its own, and that's what I wanted. I want the books, the prose books, to exist on their own. I want the graphic novels to exist on their own, with their own continuing stories, with their own continuing themes, with their own um, uh, attitude, and the books and the graphic novels can then be read in one continuous line. But I would love if we got loads of Skulduggery graphic novels that would tell its own story. So in theory, so long as everything goes well, the answer to the question is yes. So more.
So no tweets needed from you, PJ, saying you've no work.
Well, I mean, I'm hoping I'll have work, but I would say, I mean, Skulduggery's Derek's thing, and I would love to do more, and I hopefully will get to do more. But I think it's beholden on Derek, and that these other stories might be in other. I don't know how he's going to write them. I don't know. They're not necessarily going to be a continuation of that one, because there's no need for it to be. But they might be set another time. They might be younger. And it would be fun to see different versions of it. It would be fun to see, and then just to see how that character can be stretched visually, and how other people can play it. I mean, I'm hoping if there is more in around that period, maybe that'll get to be my period. That would be cool. But I say this, Skulduggery is Derek's baby, and I was along for the ride for that one journey. It was good fun.
Well, outside of Skulduggery, it almost feels, Derek, like you're actually carving your own corner of the Marvel Universe as well. I mean, you have Falcon Winter Soldier, which then went into Captain America, Iron Man, All Out Avengers, Avengers Beyond, recently the Werewolf by Night special as well. It must be great to play in that sandbox.
It is. I mean, I got into this because of a tweet that I think I was...
The power of Twitter here before Elon Musk took it over.
Honest to God, yeah.
What have we wrought? What have we lost?
Because I had wanted to get into comics for years, and my agent is wonderful, and she gets any film studio on the line in an instant, and obviously she knows the world of books inside out. She knows the world of movies and TV inside out. Comics was the great white whale that we just could not get, because we didn't know how. Because it's such a closed off industry, and really the only way to make contacts in comics is to make comics. And it's to start off, it's to find an artist, and it's to do something together, do something cheap, print it off, get yourself noticed. And I didn't have that, because I'd been a successful author, and I was king of my world, and everything was wonderful for me. And so you just go, okay, get the comics company on the line, and then we go, we don't know the number, essentially. So we had been trying.
It's curiously immune to agents. I don't know, comics artists and writers generally don't have agents in that industry. I suspect because the money's so little, but that's it's not that kind of industry. It just doesn't have it, except maybe in, I don't know, in the 60s and 70s where there would have been Argentinian agents or Spanish agents that represented groups of people, and that's how you have those influxes from those parts of the world. But generally not for writers, not for things, and there's a little more of a kind of getting to know the people first before you can really do anything, and then getting to understand you as well before.
And going to conventions, actually speaking to people, meeting people, that's how you get into comics. So I realized this eventually, and I went, right, okay, this just might not happen. or if it does happen, it's going to take a concerted effort on my part. I'm going to have to go and work with a writer to, have a professional pitch. But I was talking on Twitter about, I had mentioned, I can't remember what it was, but I was talking about comics. I was talking about Marvel. And Alana Smith, who was then associate editor, now she's full editor, sent me a tweet saying, I love the Skulduggery books. If ever you want to write for Marvel, just let me know. So that was one of those times where, this is as a lifelong comic fan, to suddenly get an offer like this from Marvel, from nothing.
And they say comics are hard to break into.
Honest to God, it's easy. All you got to do is write 15 best-selling books.
Easy. Anyone could do it.
Yeah. So she sent me this a tweet, and I started off on an 8-page story about J. Jonah Jameson, which was awesome to write. And then, so I realized, and it was a crash course in comic writing, because they don't send you a manual. They don't send you here's how to write comics, and here's what we expect of you. Obviously I knew technically how to write comics, as I got how to write comics books, and I've been buying them for years. So I knew what a comic page looked like. But it's the thing where you write a script and you send it off, and whenever I send off my editor something, he will send me back a document, or he will give me a call, and with the first draft, he'll take me to it. Derek, I love this. Now, I would look again at this part with this theme, but this line, loved it. I laughed out loud on the train. It was brilliant. And so that's what I was used to. And then suddenly I was sending Marvel my scripts, and you hear nothing, because they're so busy and they're dealing with so many writers. But I'm like, so do they hate it, or do they like it?
Where's my notes?
Yeah, where's my feedback? Where's my one-on-one? And so then, you'd get, okay, Derek, this is good, boom. Or, if they had a note, you go, right, Tony Stark doesn't really sound like Tony Stark, So, okay, you go back and you'd address that. But in general, it's, this is good, excellent. And so then they get on the writer, the artist. And then the artist, some of them will send the email thread, they will send in their thumbnails. And for years, I didn't know what was expected of me. Like, I didn't know if I could go, the thumbnail in this panel, you really have to reveal this aspect. So I didn't know what my area of responsibility began and ended. And now I realize through experience, because I actually straight out asked Alana, how much input from me at this stage are you comfortable with? And basically the answer is, if I can save the editor's work, then they will be fine with that. So I said, okay, so I send the script in, I get not really much of a reaction, but it's accepted. And then the artist sends in the thumbnails, and then I have started to go back on the thumbnails, and then you'll get the pages, and then you will, once all the art is done, then you're sent everything, and you go, okay, now come up with a lettering draft, and you go, okay, so now I've got to rearrange my script to react to the changes that the artist has made through his interpretation. And then you go, okay, so then you send that off, and then you come back with the lettered version, and you've got to give your notes on that. So I didn't know any of this. I thought this is a case of you write a script and you hand it over and you let the experts deal with it. But the experts are so freaking busy. And so it really is all hands on deck. So it was a trial by fire, but it was a trial by fire in a very contained, controlled environment, because I was given a series of miniseries. The Black Order, then Falcon, Winter Soldier, then Captain America, Iron Man, then Avengers Forever, and then that morphed into Avengers Beyond. And I'm probably missing out something else. But just to work with the Avengers, to get that email saying, okay, we're going to launch a new Avengers book. Here's your cast. Send us your, the first 5 story ideas. And, to any chance I have, I include Spider-Man, because my brief was you can have any character who has ever been an Avenger. So I said Spider-Man was an Avenger, so I can write Spider-Man now, because that was my gateway character when I was a kid. But just to write the Marvel in the Marvel universe, it's beyond a thrill, and it's beyond an honor. But at the same time, I look back at the stuff I've done and go, okay, I was way too safe. I was way too respectful of other writers and other creative teams, because I just wanted to tell my little story and not interfere or not change anything in a big way. Oh, I changed something in a big way by accident. I added one step in the evolution of the Beyonder. The Celestials did something and they gave the power to the Beyonders, and the Beyonders went off, and I put a step between the Celestials and the Beyonder, and I got so many people saying this doesn't make any sense, so yeah, that was wonderful. But that was my first taste, because I'm completely inoculated from that with Skulduggery, and I'm immune to it because whatever I say goes, and I can change the history and the characters and whatever else. But with Marvel, the readers are the experts, and I think I've done all my research, and then they say, "Have you not read this series?" And I go, "Oh, geez."
With the big 2 stuff, though, I think people, they hate change, they hate it, and then they hate it for a long time, and then eventually they go, "Don't change that. That's part of the canon, and how dare you overturn it or change it? That's always been part of the canon, and we love it." And you're like, because I remember when Clone Spider-Man was outrageous and a terrible thing, and it was awful, and now everyone loves it. It's like, just wait long enough. You just wait long enough, everything will be good and okay.
And good, like PJ, I don't know what it's like for you, but in terms of interactions with readers, and with the Marvel fans who have taken issue with the change I made, they know their stuff. They really do, and they know it way better than I do. So I've got to come back with the writer's logic of, yeah, I get what you're saying, dude, but from the storytelling point of view, who's stronger, the Thing or the Hulk? It's whatever the writer decides at that moment. So you've got to respect where they are coming from, because they're actually, they are kind of like the protectors of the canon. and as irate as some of them have been, like they're quite nice, or they have been.
I mean, because I come from a 2000 AD background where Dread, everything that's happened, Dread's canon is much more consistent in the sense that it runs consecutively without ever being rebooted, so it's all true. But also, nobody holds it to any hard standard. Like, you can simply overturn stuff and it doesn't matter. It's less important, or it's sort of, you know what, okay, at that point there were this and also this, and so we've decided now there's only this. That's fine. So there's it's like Steve Jobs said about ideas. It's like you hold them fiercely but loosely. You're fierce with them but loose with them. So the moment they can be overturned in a second's notice, and then you're on to the next thing you latch onto. So it's always a bit baffling to me about Marvel readers where the canon is so often upturned and turned, and rebooted. None of it's canon. It's all canon, and none of it's canon. It's where it doesn't matter. Like and also you get to a certain age. It's like, no, I want to read Peter Parker as Peter Parker the way I read him when I was 12. That's what you want these characters to be. So, but I've not really done any Marvel work at all. I've done a little bit of DC work, but it's always with slightly. I did that Soul Plumber book, which is sort of creator owned, I think, and I've done little bits and pieces with other characters where they sort of turn up and they don't, nothing important happens to them, so it doesn't matter that it's canonical or not. But I've done a lot of Dread, and believe me, there's a certain level of canonical and non-canonical there that you can learn to live with and learn to let go of. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I always just say when it comes to canon, a good story is a good story.
Yeah.
I think, as someone who owns a store, my knowledge needs to be tip top, because similar to you guys as creators, I'm held to a standard of, have you read this? Have you read this? Have you read this?
The five books that I could mention that everyone would have read or should read or would tell someone else to read, none of them were strictly speaking canon when they were released. The Dark Knight Returns was not canonical. It was outside of the Dark Knight Returns. Gotham by Gaslight, where on earth is that in the canon? How does that fit into the world? Watchmen, none of those things were real or not. What else? The stuff with Captain Britain, and there's a whole bunch of absolute stone cold classics that are only stone cold classics because they ignored all the canonical stuff. And Superman, All-Star Superman is another one which kind of mushes all the canon together and picks the best bits out of it and just gives you those bits. That's Yeah. So anyway, I'm not too worried about that. But everything in Skulduggery Pleasant's Bad Magic is canonical and should never be overturned.
So for any listeners out there who strictly adhere to canon, this is the series for you, clearly.
That's it.
One voice running through it all, as opposed to 80 years of regime changes and writer changes and updates and crises and secret wars and all sorts of things. Obviously outside of Skulduggery and everything else for both of you, it'd be remiss for me not to ask about any upcoming projects. Anything in the pipeline you can tell us about on here?
PJ? I have a load of funny little projects. I do an ongoing micro-fiction zine called A4, which is an A4 sheet. You print it out and you fold it up and you get this little standee with kind of like a 1950s style retro cover on it. And they're just little micro-fictions and that comes out monthly. So I've just done one which is about weird westerns. So lots of little short stories. You can read it in 5 minutes. It's not, I'm slightly scared of writing, so this was a good way, I think, to kind of write stuff. I'll have an idea in the car and I'll think, there's a good story in that, and then I don't have to write the story because it's a microfiction. I can just write the bit that I've thought of and go, that'll do, that's enough. So I've got that.
The things when you put up your on Twitter, your little story ideas, they're wonderful. They're so cool. I'm like, okay, I want to read this now. All these little like one-liner pitches. It's like, ooh, I've got an idea for this. Now then you do nothing with it.
I know I'm a terrible. Well, thank you very much for saying that. I genuinely have no confidence in writing at all. None. And part of it as well is there's a part of me thinks if I write this as a story, I could draw it. And then I think, oh, I know how much work there is in drawing this. No. That. And then I think I could. What if I got someone else to draw it? And I think I couldn't afford anyone else. I'm the cheapest artist I know, and I don't want to draw it. What am I going to do with this? So the A4 is a way for me to excise those things. But at some point, I'm going to sit down. I'm going to take my favorite ones and expand them into a comic, and finally do that fabled Kickstarter I've always wanted to do, which is just me writing and drawing my own stuff. The other thing I'm doing a thing called PJ Holden's Null Space, and it's a web comic, a weekly web comic written by the some of the best names in who've not written comics in genre fiction. So Adrian Tchaikovsky, Taddy Thompson, and a bunch of I've got a whole load of names, have all written these one-page stories for me, and they're going to come out weekly from the 6th of October, which I think is a Friday. And it's called PJ Holden's Null Space, because I was thinking, I want, this is mine. This is mine. I want people to. What ties this whole thing together is I'm the artist drawing every single one of these stories, but they're all in different art styles because they're all different stories. And the writers have not conferred. They're all individual, one-off little one-page stories, and I'm just drawing them as If I get a story that's kind of slightly romantic, I'll draw it in a slightly romantic sense. If I get something that's pure gothic horror, it'll become a black and white piece. If I get something that's got a bit of comedy to it, I'll draw it in a goofy style. So they're all different art styles. It's not unlike the folklore thing I did, where I kind of adapted these folklore things, except these are all written comics. And as I say, they're all named. They're writers that are better known as writers of sci-fi and genre pieces. So Gareth Powell, for example, he's written a load of sci-fi stuff, and there's a bunch of others. There's a whole slew of names that are not coming to my head because I'm an idiot. So I'm doing that. Judge Dredd this week starts a 7 or 8 part series called Poison, where Dredd is on the hunt for the guy or gal who murdered Judge Hershey. Slightly unfortunate for me is that it's also in the same issue as a Garth Ennis Henry Flint Judge Dredd, which looks amazing and is very funny. And so you're like going, why am I doing the second best Dredd in 2000 AD? That's not fair. So buy it for the Henry and Garth Ennis Dredd, and stick around for my Dredd. So that's coming out this week. And what else? DC have just announced these Beast Wars thing that's coming out, the Beast World, which is the Teen Titans. Lots of them get turned into beasts of some kind.
Yeah, it's an offshoot from Tom Taylor's Titans series, so it's DC's big event for
Tom
November.
Taylor's Titans. Is it absolutely imperative that all of these titles have alliterative functions?
If it's not, it should be now.
Tom Taylor's Titans. Well, I've drawn a very short Huntress tale with Sam Maggs writing it, which is a lot of fun. And DC says, "Can you color this?" I went, "Yeah, I'll color it." And then I said to him, I says, "How much? I've finished this. Here's all the artwork." I went, "Thanks very much." And I said, "I haven't got my contract yet." I went, "Hang on a second." And he came back and says, "Have you ever done any coloring for us before?" I went, "No." I went, "Oh." I got a very strong sense that they hadn't realized I'd never done coloring for them before. And I think might be the nicest thing I've ever done, because I've colored it myself, and coloring's hard. And coloring my work especially can be a bit difficult, I think, because a lot of artists kind of get the wrong impression from what it is, and I think they tend to kind of, one thing they steer away from is a lot of textures, and I like a lot of textures in my art, and there's a lot of open space for textures and stuff. So I think my favorite pieces on it is, I think, the last page, where the background has been colored and drawn, and it looks, because I've colored it, it looks a bit like some of the backgrounds from 101 Dalmatians, which is easily one of my favorite Disney sort of artwork styles. It's got that loose kind of sketchiness to it, and beautiful kind of washes of colors that sort of overspill the line work and stuff. And I don't think many colorists will do that. A possible exception would be Sean Phillipson, who, I've forgotten his first name, who colors Sean on a lot of his work, where he will his colors will spill out across the whatever it is he's doing. So I've got that, and and also the fabulous folklore. This book that's just out as well. Sorry, I don't normally have very much coming out, but I seem to have a ton at the moment. Fantastic folklore. How there a second ago?
The power of Twitter. Power of Twitter.
Yeah, it's on there anyway. You'll see it. It's a nice book. It's beautiful tales of folklore. It's a project I did with John Reppian, where John would write a tweet. And this is, again, what Twitter used to be good at. John would write one little tweet about a piece of folklore, and I would turn that into a full page comic, and one page, and I'd use the tweet as a sort of jumping off point for a comic, which might be about the tweet, or it might be something that contradicts the tweet or runs in parallel with it. So each piece of folklore is kind of its own little story, and there's 52 of them, and they also are accompanied by an essay John's written about that piece of folklore. So it's the comic and the essay with the folklore about it beside it. So that's a full page, and it's a gorgeous looking book, and I think it's a really lovely. There are books that you kind of go, I did a good comic there. That's a really nice thing. And I'm really, I'm proud of there it is. I'm proud of the book that Derek and I did, but this came out of my brain. this is me going to John, let's do some folklore stuff. And so it looks like that. So there's one I'm showing this on video, but if you're listening, you'll not see it. But there's the Boudica comic strip, and then an essay on Boudica. And they're all like that. They're all sort of beautifully graphic designed essays. So you'll get one little page of comics and the essay. So they're a perfect toilet book where you can take it in with you and read two or three very interesting
that has
things.
To be the blurb on the book itself, doesn't it? The perfect toilet book.
So I have a lot of stuff coming out, and that's it. PJ out. All right, over to you.
No, I've got nothing coming out now. We're out with Bad Magic, and March we're out with A Mind Full of Murder, book 16 in Skulduggery. So then I got no, that I can't even talk about Marvel.
Boo.
Yeah.
This is one of the things with comics is really weird, is when you're the artist on, especially for the bigger the company, the harder this gets, is you don't know what you're allowed to talk about or when until somebody spills the beans on Twitter or wherever, and then you go, is it okay for me to mention this now? Can I send people artwork? What, am I even allowed to say that? Maybe I've revealed too much about that Beast World thing. I don't know. Should be all right.
You're okay. The previews books came out this week, and all the Beast Wars one shots are in it, so I'm pretty sure you're just about okay there. But
that's all right then. I'll send you. Just between us. I'll send you if you want to see it.
Well, we're so close to having Derek slip up there, and his lawyers were knocking down the door to say, "What do you think you're doing?" But yeah, no, we'll wrap it up, gents. But I just wanted to bring attention to the fact that obviously with regards to Bad Magic, you're going to be embarking on a UK and Ireland tour to promote the book. I know you'll both be there in Cheltenham. You had mentioned a series of other dates as well. But I do want to draw attention to one specific signing where you will both be there as well, as I would like to exclusively reveal on the Saturday the 4th of November. I believe we will have the pleasure of your company in our humble little store.
And look, if anyone sat through 2 hours just to get to that nugget of information, you deserve it.
Well, this is the first time I've talked publicly about it. I've mentioned it to my other half, and I've mentioned it to one specific big Skulduggery Pleasant fan in store. He's actually met you a few times, Derek. I think the last one was at a Waterstone signing, but he's particularly excited for this one.
He's that guy you've got the distance order on.
Suddenly he won't be allowed in store. But no, it's something we're really looking forward to. We love doing signings in store. We've just come off the back of one there at the weekend. Actually, we had an American writer over, David M. Boer, which was pretty fantastic. But this will be the first ever artist-writer combined signing.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Except for when you had Declan sign and stuff, because he is also a writer-artist, but in one person.
He pretends to be a writer. He pretends to be a writer. He's an artist. He's just sick of drawing for the last 15 years, so he wants to write because he knows that's not quite as much work on the shoulder.
That's where the money is, and it's the easy money. Yeah.
But no, it was really interesting because I had Patricia in the store yesterday. And she had come in to have a look at the store, and she said, "No, just be mindful."
Patricia is the
HarperCollins.
HarperCollins.
Yeah,
Right.
so she was in store with me, and we
Did
were
she
having.
come over from England to do that?
I think she's from here.
Oh, shit, that's all right. I
could be
was going
wrong.
to say that's mad.
But what was great was she was sitting chatting to me, and she was like, "Now, I know you're talking about like a 3 hour window. Now, Derek likes to spend a bit of time with people who are good enough to queue for him and stuff. I mean, how flexible is that 3 hours? Can that go longer?" And all I could think of, and I said this to her straight away, was, "Have you ever met PJ before? You you think it's only going to stretch to 3.5 to 4 to 5?" Which she had a good laugh at, but
Yeah, but I think what you'll find is a lot of them, more of them, will be there for Derek than for PJ. Just Derek will have to talk fast, and I will just be talking away to the one person who accidentally glanced at me.
just made that eye contact. That's your first
Just
mistake.
accidentally made eye contact and not been able to break off ever since.
Just looking at you like that's your first mistake there. But no, we'll very much look forward to that. As I say, it'll be a great way to round off the year, having you guys in, and obviously pushing the book as much as possible. I read it.
Fun.
I've never read a Skulduggery Pleasant book before, and don't take that personally, because I don't think I've read a prose novel outside of an autobiography in about 10 years, because comics are just got their hooks into me so much that I don't know if I have an imagination anymore. That's slightly concerning. I need the pictures. I need the art. But no, I really, really enjoyed Bad Magic. It was perfect for a first time reader. It was very witty in places, good comedy banter between the two main characters, good dose of horror in there, and I always appreciate anything you can read where you can just hear the Irish brogue in it. It's not an Americanized language the whole way through it. So
Some good fun monsters in there too, I hope.
Oh,
the
art. Yeah, the artwork was great. PJ.
That's good. I was just waiting on that.
That's why I kept turning the pages. Nothing to do with the dialogue. It was all about that extra page per chapter of artwork. So, but yeah, no, it's been a pleasure chatting to you, gents. Many thanks for coming on. Best of luck, obviously, with the launch for the book. And as I say, you may have just made me a convert to Skulduggery, but more graphic novels, please.
Yes, indeed.
I look forward to seeing you guys in November.